It was late in the evening, and the house was quiet. My husband had stepped out to pick up something from the store, leaving me alone for a little while. The warm water ran over my hands as I scrubbed a plate, lost in the mindless rhythm of it. The hum of the kitchen appliances was the only sound, a soft, constant background noise. I barely noticed the sound of footsteps behind me until I felt a presence, close, too close. A slow warmth spread down my spine before I even turned my head. Mark. He had been my husband's closest friend for years, always effortlessly charming, carrying himself with a casual confidence that made him feel like he belonged anywhere. I had always liked him, always found him easy to talk to, but there was something about him tonight that felt different. "Didn't mean to startle you," he murmured, his voice lower than usual, thick with something unspoken. I forced a small smile, turning my attention back to the sink. "You didn't. Just lost in thought." He leaned in, his chest almost brushing my back. The heat of his body radiated against me, making my skin prickle with awareness. "You always keep yourself busy," he mused, his voice quieter now, almost intimate. I swallowed, my fingers tightening around the sponge. "Just have it, I guess." His eyes were on me. I could feel it, feel the weight of his gaze moving slowly, taking in every small movement I made. A warmth crept over my skin, a different kind of heat that had nothing to do with the hot water running over my hands. Mark had always been a flirt, but it had never felt like this before. This close, this deliberate. He reached forward, his fingers just barely grazing my wrist. A small, accidental touch, except it didn't feel accidental at all. My breath caught. I turned my head, and suddenly, we were closer than we should have been. Close enough that I could see the hint of a smirk playing at the corner of his lips. Close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him. I should have stepped back. I should have laughed, made some joke, created space. But I didn't move. And neither did he. His fingers slid from my wrist to the inside of my palm, his touch light but deliberate. A slow, silent question that neither of us wanted to put into words. My pulse pounded in my ears as I watched his eyes darken, watched the way his gaze dropped ever so slightly to my lips. The air felt heavier, charged. A silent understanding passed between us, dangerous and thrilling. His other hand came to rest on my hip, just lightly, just enough to make my breath hitch. He was testing the boundary, seeing how far he could go. And I let him. He stepped closer, his chest pressing against my back, his breath warm against the side of my neck. I shivered, not from the cold, but from the way my body reacted to the proximity. His fingertips brushed up my arm, leaving a trail of heat in their wake. "I always thought you were beautiful," he murmured against my ear, his voice thick with something deeper now, something raw. My breath stuttered. The words wrapped around me, dangerous and intoxicating. I should have stopped him then, should have pulled away, but my body betrayed me. I leaned into him, just slightly, just enough. He noticed. His hands slid down to my waist, his grip firmer this time. I could feel his fingers pressing into me, claiming me in a way that made my pulse race. His lips brushed against the curve of my neck, barely there, but enough to make me gasp. I closed my eyes, my head tilting back instinctively. It had been so long since I had felt like this, wanted, desired. The realization hit me like a shockwave, making my knees weak. "Tell me to stop," he murmured against my skin, his lips just barely grazing my collarbone now. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Instead, a small sound escaped me, something between a sigh and a moan. That was all he needed. His grip tightened, pulling me closer until there was no space left between us. His hands roamed, slow and purposeful, exploring, teasing. He turned me in his arms, forcing me to face him, and I was met with the intensity in his eyes. We were past the point of no return, and I didn't want to go back. The air between us felt electric, thick with something unspoken, something neither of us could ignore anymore. My heart pounded as I looked up at Mark, my husband's closest friend, who now stood before me, his hands firmly on my waist. His grip was gentle but possessive, sending a thrill through me I hadn't felt in years. I knew it was wrong. I knew I should pull away, break the moment before it went too far. But I didn't. Instead, I let my fingers slide up his chest, feeling the warmth of his skin through the thin fabric of his shirt. He inhaled sharply, his jaw clenching as if trying to hold back. His eyes searched mine, searching for hesitation, doubt. But there was none. His hands slid up my sides, tracing the curve of my body with agonizing slowness. My breath caught in my throat as he leaned down, his lips hovering just above mine. "Tell me to stop," he murmured, his voice strained, almost pleading. But I didn't. I lifted my chin slightly, giving him the silent answer he needed. It was enough. His lips met mine in a kiss that was both urgent and hesitant, as if he'd been waiting for this moment for too long. His fingers tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, deepening the kiss until there was nothing between us but heat and need. I melted beneath him, my hands gripping his shoulders for support as his tongue teased mine, exploring, claiming. A soft moan escaped my lips, and he groaned in response, his hands moving lower, holding me close. Every touch, every caress ignited something inside me, something primal and desperate. My body responded to him in ways I hadn't expected, in ways I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. He lifted me effortlessly, sitting me on the kitchen counter, his lips never leaving mine. His hands slid up my thighs, pushing the hem of my dress higher, his touch leaving a trail of fire in his wake. My skin tingled, my body aching for more, for everything. "This is crazy," he breathed against my lips, his forehead pressing against mine. "But I can't stop. I don't want you to do this," I whispered back, my fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him back against me. His hands tightened on my hips, and he kissed me again, deeper this time, his body pressed tightly against mine. My legs instinctively wrapped around him, pulling him closer, feeling the hard evidence of his arousal against me. A delicious warmth spread through me, pooling in my lower belly. He trailed kisses down my jaw, to my neck, sucking lightly on the sensitive skin there, making me shiver. My head fell back, giving him full access, enjoying the feel of his lips exploring me, his hands squeezing me as if afraid to let go. I felt completely destroyed, consumed by him, the way he touched me, the way he made me feel alive again. I had forgotten what it was like to be wanted like this, wanted so fiercely. And it happened. We crossed the line of friendship and did it. Yeah, it wasn't right, but I couldn't stop. I wanted to, but I wished it wouldn't happen. But there was a weird feeling during the lesson. I started laughing at it harder and harder. Eventually he noticed, but didn't say anything. He just continued. But reality loomed just beyond the haze of pleasure. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway sent a panic attack through me. My husband. Mark pulled away instantly, his breathing ragged, his eyes dark with lingering desire. We stared at each other, chests heaving, caught between what had just happened and what was about to happen. "You should go," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He hesitated for a moment, his fingers lingering on my skin before he finally pulled back. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "It's not over," he said, his voice firm, a promise hidden beneath the words. Then he was gone, slipping out the back door just as the front door opened. My husband called my name, his voice oblivious to the storm that had just swept through the kitchen. I pressed my hand to my lips, my heart still pounding. I knew things would never be the same. The taste of Mark still lingered, the feel of his hands still burning my skin. It's not over. Not by a long shot.